Welcome back to Paul's Tech News. I don't know how the month of July is going for you, but whether you're dealing with sweltering heat, a global IT outage, or your third Long Island iced tea of the afternoon, I hope you're also setting aside some time for yourself to relax and take a breather before the second half of 2024 accelerates inexorably towards the busyness and chaos of fall and the holidays. I mean, what could go wrong? Decent bit ahead on that, Poor. I will certainly be taking this advice, so please note that there will be no tech news next week on the 28th, but I'll be back on August 4th to bring you guys back up to speed. Hopefully by then, Crowdstrike will have corrected this week's absurdly far-reaching IT snafu, and maybe there will even be news about AMD's 9000 series CPU launch, the Nvidia RTX 50 series, or Intel actually addressing the rampant failures of their 13th and 14th gen Raptor Lake processors. I'm sure they'll get around to that eventually. But for now, tech news.
Excellent!
Today's video is brought to you by the Corsair K65 Plus wireless RGB keyboard, featuring silky smooth pre-lubricated Corsair MLX red mechanical switches, 2 layers of sound dampening for softened typing acoustics, AES encrypted connectivity via low latency 2.4 GHz wireless, Bluetooth or USB wired, a multi-purpose rotary dial with function key combos and shortcut commands, resilient PBT dye sublimated keycaps, and of course, per key RGB lighting effects, which are endlessly customizable in Corsair's IQ software. For more on the Corsair K65 Plus, click the sponsor link in the video description. The internet is complicated and is underpinned by a massive variety of data centers and IT service providers who you've probably never heard of if you don't work in the industry, until one of them fucks up, as was the case with the Texas-based cybersecurity company Crowdstrike on Friday morning, revealing just how vital one cog in the machine can be. Windows PCs and servers began blue screening across the globe when Crowdstrike rolled out a security update that clearly shouldn't have passed quality control testing if QC was even involved at all, meaning this wasn't a coordinated attack by a hacking group or a botnet, it was just a massive blunder, a misconfigured or corrupted update that should never have gone live, especially considering the range of vital services their software is tied to. Every enterprise that uses Crowdstrike was affected, which includes hospitals and 911 services, banks and financial institutions, TV stations, government services, and airlines and airports, as shown dramatically in this animation of flights being grounded Friday morning. Perhaps most tragic are stories of medical facilities who have had to postpone vital surgical procedures due to this massive tech fail, with the only silver lining being that only Windows systems seem to be affected. Just imagine if Linux PCs were going down too, we'd basically be back in the dark ages. So way to go, Crowdstrike, you win the prize for causing the biggest IT outage ever so far, as reflected by that Friday nosedive in your stock price. Okay, let's do our usual passive news related to the big 3 PC hardware manufacturers, starting with AMD. Their Ryzen 9000 CPUs will still launch July 31st, no big changes or updates there, but what about those Radeon GPUs? Is RDNA 4 coming soon? Are we skipping it and going straight for RTX 50 series crushing RDNA 5 designs? No, nothing as impressive as that. We can't get too worked up in July after all, but what if AMD took the current Radeon 7000 series, which hasn't generated much excitement or increased market share for them, and made more of them? Well, Merry Christmas to the 4 or 5 of you whose ears perked up there, because according to an EEC filing by Acer on Thursday, there's a decent chance AMD will be giving us exactly what no one has been asking for later this year: an expanded RX 7000 series with non-XT versions of the 7900, 7800, and 7700, so prospective PC gamers can pore over a few more Radeon GPU options before ultimately deciding to just buy an Nvidia card. Acer's filing, as shared by Harukaze5719 on Twitter, says they'll be selling Nitro and Bifrost versions of these cards, but it should be noted that EEC filings aren't always a guarantee that these products will come to market. And we're still not expecting the Radeon 8000 series until Q1 2025 at the earliest. But I sure do look forward to explaining the subtle differences in performance and value between the 7900 XTX, 7900 XT, 7900 GRE, and, at long last, the regular-ass 7900. So let's be real, people seem to be way more excited about the prospects for Nvidia's rumored RTX 50 series, which AMD will probably need more than a raft of 7000 series GPUs to contend with. But Nvidia isn't exactly feeling a lot of competitive pressure to launch their next-gen series, which is likely why leaks have been few and far between. And don't be fooled by some of the erroneous headlines from earlier this week about RTX 50 series TDPs being higher than the 40 series, or what that means for 50 series power consumption. These rumors started because Seasonic, who manufactures PSUs, not GPUs, updated their website's wattage calculator with, supposedly, the full 5-card 50 series stack, the RTX 5050 up to the RTX 5090, with associated TDPs for each. Do not draw assumptions from this, my friends. For one, TDP is not equivalent to power draw, please keep this in mind, and comparing these values from Seasonic to RTX 40 series TDPs does not mean the new GPU will draw 50 watts more, or 55 watts more, or whatever. And for another, as noted, Seasonic makes power supplies, and it's very doubtful that they have the full specs of Nvidia's not yet officially announced RTX 50 series, especially the lower tier cards, which are even further off on the launch schedule. This was either placeholder data that wasn't meant to go live, or it's Seasonic doing some updates to its PSU calculator using values that are intentionally overestimated because they want buyers looking to purchase a future-proof PSU to go ahead and add to cart. Speaking of erroneous assumptions, the tech media at large was perhaps too optimistic last week when Intel's most recent CPU controversy escalated sharply based on data brought to light by Wendell of Level 1 Techs. Intel will surely make a statement, many of us thought. They won't just ignore the clear evidence that their 13th and 14th Gen Raptor Lake CPUs are crashing and failing at much higher rates than usual, especially when more data is piling on from other game devs, which shows that even mobile CPUs are at risk. Fortunately, I have secured an exclusive interview with a group of high-level Intel executives to provide some reassurance and feedback for their loyal customers. We go live to the feed now. Thanks for talking to us today, Intel executives. Let's get right to it. What do you have to say to customers who might be starting to question Intel's long-standing reputation for reliability and stability in CPU hardware? Of course, I understand some of you come from more of the engineering and technical side of the team. We appreciate you being here and working past the awkwardness of speaking on camera. For customers who have experienced persistent crashes or failures though, what assurances can Intel make that they'll receive warranty support for those processors? Okay, I'm gonna stop you there just to be clear, we are not partners, okay? Gotcha, okay, thank you. So there was a lot of dense technical discussion there, but to summarize, it sounds like they're still working out some bugs. Let's move on. When you really need to finish the tech news fast, remember to lubricate generously with tech briefs. And I needed no lubrication at all for my wallet, metaphorically speaking, when I saw this earlier this week as part of the remarkably effective ad campaign for Deadpool and Wolverine that comes out this week. We have a special edition Xbox controller with Deadpool's ass on the back. How it was possible to construct such a supple and vibrant handheld device with gorgeous texture, extra straps, and those sculpted, cuppable buttocks is beyond me, but how dare they tease us with such a thing and not make it a buyable product? No, we are all our collective disappointment today, as only one lucky son of a bitch will be winning this device, and it's a stupid sweepstakes you have to enter on Twitter and stuff. I've never been this disappointed by an ass before, but hopefully the eventual winner will tell us what we all really want to know. Are those cheeks squishy or hard? I know which one I am. Speaking of the ass end of things, Firefox, practically the only functional non-Chromium browser out there, disappointed many users last week by rolling out a new privacy feature that is on by default. On the one hand, version 128 of Firefox enables the Privacy Preserving Attribution, or PPA, API designed to feed browsing data to advertisers for attribution purposes, which Chromium haters likely recognize as one of the reasons they ditched Google's web browsing solutions in the first place. Firefox provides better privacy, minimizes tracking and cookies, and typically doesn't give big businesses your data for free. On the other hand, PPA is supposed to be an alternative solution for web advertisers that is less invasive and doesn't track you on an individual level, which could be a better alternative to cookies and the like. The jury is still out. Whether this API gains traction remains to be seen, but if you're a Firefox user and you'd rather opt out, you should disable PPA in your settings menu. Another thing you can't buy is Fractal Design's Project North Pi, a Raspberry Pi case that they showed off at Computex last month. Despite a community outcry to take our money now, Fractal, they still say they won't be mass producing these diminutive chassis, plural. They want us to mass produce them instead. Good Guy Fractal has gone and published free downloadable design files and full instructions so people can print North Pis themselves, providing they have a 3D printer, of course, meaning Jeff Geerling won't have to break into Fractal headquarters to make off with a pallet of them. Not that he had contacted me about being a getaway driver for his heist that he was planning or anything. We'll raid Noctua instead, since these little 40mm fans in the front are still sold separately. Speaking of things I'd like to steal, 60TB SSDs. Samsung announced the BM1743 last week, joining Solidigm and Western Digital as storage providers who make way cooler stuff for data centers than desktop PCs. I don't know who colluded in a back room somewhere, presumably, to come to the agreement that desktop SSDs should top out at 4TB and no more, but it's clear that more storage can easily be crammed into our PCs, and I'd rather not have to pay for an enterprise-grade U.2 or E3.S adapter to do so. I bet these 60TB drives are screaming deals too, but actually, it says here the Solidigm one is $7,000 each. So I guess we're still better off going with like 15 4TB M.2 SSDs for $200 each. That's more like $3,000. The point is, I need more space for my Steam games. Should be enough. But there you have it, guys, tech news for the week, and if you liked it, click that like button or leave me a comment down below. While you're down there, all of the articles I talked about today are linked in the video's description if you're interested, and you can check out my store at paulshardware.net for high-quality merchandise, t-shirts, hoodies, beer sets, and more. Subscribing to my channel is always a good call too. Thanks again, everyone, and we'll see you the week after next.